Mic check 1 2. Back in 2024, the first quarter of the year was amazing. I got all types of games from complete in box Super Nintendo games to complete in box Neo Geo AES games, GameCube games, and it felt like almost everything in between. This year, the first quarter hasn't been as crazy as last year, but it's still been pretty good. And I'm going to go through pretty much all of my first quarter pickups with you guys just to show you what the first quarter of 2025 has looked like. Now, I've broken this down into 3 sections. The first section being the common games or games that are pretty much like $30 to $35 and under. Then in the next section, you're gonna see games that are somewhere between 35 and say like 70, maybe $50 or so. And then in the last section, you're going to pretty much see the heavy hitting titles that I've picked up for the first quarter. So without any wasting of time, let's get into it. These two are a couple Game Boy games that you see here. This was picked up at a GameStop in store. This was picked up from GameStop online. 2 solid pickups. Then you have another GameStop online pickup in Sword of Mana for the Game Boy Advance. That was a really cool find. You have a couple more Super Nintendo games, both GameStop pickups as well. Donkey Kong Country and Batman Forever, 2 decent Super Nintendo pickups. A 1943 on the NES, really good shoot 'em up. You wouldn't really realize it or know it, but really good shoot 'em up on the NES, not one that a lot of people talk about. Okay, and that was also a GameStop pickup. That was online. We have another in-store GameStop pickup, Shenmue on the Dreamcast. Really stoked to find that one. And then we have on the PlayStation 4, Bubsy Paws on Fire. Picked this up yesterday during a 4 under 20 for 40. Then we have a couple GameCube games. So, Pitfall Lost Expedition. This is actually a pickup from a local retro game store. Picked this one up in a trade. And then you have a GameStop pickup, SSX on Tour, really good condition. This was a in-store GameStop find on the GameCube. Then we got a couple more GameCube pickups here. We've got SSX Tricky and Harvest Moon, Another Wonderful Life, both on the GameCube. Both GameStop pickups found in-store at 2 different GameStops. So really cool finds there. And then one more GameCube pickup here. We have Star Wars Bounty Hunter for the GameCube. Another GameStop pickup in store, complete. All the GameCube games were complete, and you're going to notice a common trend that all these games are picked up at GameStop. We have a couple more GameStop pickups here. We have Just Dance Greatest Hits and Just Dance 19. Greatest Hits is actually sick. A lot of really good songs from my, I guess, heyday, I guess you would say. Really good stuff there. My daughter loves those games. And then we have on the Xbox 360, The Godfather 2. This was an in-store GameStop pickup. Really stoked to find this one. A couple of PlayStation 2 finds. So first we have River City King. This was a pickup from GameStop in store. Just picked this up yesterday. And then this was actually part of a trade. I did a trade with a local reseller and was able to pick up a complete in-box copy of Castlevania Lament of Innocence. Really good PlayStation 2 games. Glad to have those. I'm going to do all of these in kind of like a group of 4. So we have 4 PlayStation 2 games, including Gauntlet, Seven Sorrows, Dark Cloud, Dark Alliance, and Teen Titans. All complete in box, and these were all picked up at my local GameStop. They had all of these, picked these up, I want to say like less than a week ago. They had a massive trade-in, and so I just took complete advantage. So that does it for pretty much all of the low dollar games that I picked up. And you're gonna notice something. A lot of these games came from GameStop, almost all of them. All right, so moving into the next section. This is like the 30, and some of the price ranges are gonna blend into each other, right? You might see some $20 or so games here in this bundle, but for the most part, these are the games that average somewhere between like 40 and 50 bucks. So got a bunch of N64 games here, and I'm just gonna lay them all out so that you can see them all. All of these were picked up at GameStop. As you can see, Diddy Kong Racing, Super Mario 64, Super Smash Bros, Clay Fighter, and then Mario Party, the first Mario Party. So all of these were some really neat GameStop pickups. These, for the most part, were all online pickups. So I did not find these N64 games in store. But when I saw them online, I did go ahead and take advantage and snagged all of these up. And then next you have this copy of The Legend of Zelda, really clean copy of The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. This was a GameStop online pickup. A couple of PS Vita games complete. These two are both GameStop pickups, both picked up from GameStop Online. GameStop Online has been doing a really good job of sending their stuff complete in box. Was glad to add these two to the Vita collection. A couple really nice action games, like, you know, kind of action platforming games, 3D platformers for the Vita. Then picked up a whole host of Switch games. I started collecting for the Switch again, starting in, I want to say either February or March. And so here go all of these Switch pickups for the first quarter. So of course we have Tevi, an amazing game there. We've got Ys 10 Nordics, Jet Cave Adventure, The Messenger. This is a pretty recent pickup. And then Tiny Thor, also another cool pickup. So a really solid mix of games here. We have a couple strictly limited, a reprint. This one, the most uncommon or the most not talked about that I've seen, that's not like a part of a limited release or anything, is Tevi. I'm really stoked to get into that one, but some really solid Switch pickups. Was glad to add all of those to the collection. We have a couple more NES pickups. We have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 Project Manhattan. And then we also have Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! And we have The Legend of Zelda. So the gold edition, all three of these were picked up from GameStop.com. So GameStop coming through and saving the day there. And just to kind of go back a little bit, when it comes to the Switch games, two of these Switch games came from Strictly Limited. So these were mailed directly from Strictly Limited. Tevi, this one was ordered on eBay. And then Ys Nordics, I picked this one up from Best Buy, and The Messenger was surprisingly a GameStop pickup because I don't typically pick up new games from GameStop. All right, keeping the train going, we have The Legend of Zelda: Phantom Hourglass. This was another GameStop.com pickup. Was totally shocked. Again, complete in box. Can't believe they were coming through with that. GameStop.com. We have a couple more GameStop pickups here. So we have Deadly Premonition. This was an in-store pickup. And then we have Oddworld Abe's Odyssey New and Tasty. Now, this was actually free. This was sitting in a bin of free games at GameStop. I guess they didn't have it in their system, probably because this is like a limited run kind of release, so they probably didn't have that in their system. Gave it to me for free. Both of these were pretty neat pickups from GameStop in store. We have a couple more in-store GameStop pickups. We have Transformers and Silent Hill Downpour, two pickups that I was able to get. Really solid titles. Everything that has a case for the most part is complete in box and in 8 to 9 out of 10 condition. So giving them their props on that. We have a bunch of GameStop games that were recently picked up in a massive GameStop haul. So I'm going to kind of do them in two groups. So I'll show you these two first. We have Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Party 4. I recently picked these up in a massive haul from GameStop. My local GameStop had a massive trade-in. All of them were complete in box. All of them were in 8 to 9 out of 10 condition. Was glad to add those. And then we had The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker and Luigi's Mansion, complete, and in great condition as well. And then the one I typically see those GameCube games at GameStop. The one that I don't normally see is Phantasy Star Online. So this was one that I was actually pleasantly surprised to see in store, and of course it was complete. So this was another pleasant surprise there. Massive GameCube haul. Was glad to take advantage that day. GameStop as well. And then we have another GameStop pickup. This is Shadow Hearts from the New World. So this was another GameStop find. Just saw this sitting on the shelf in the store. Again, complete. All of these games are complete. I definitely had a lot of good luck when it came to finding complete in-box disc games, because a lot of times they only have the disc, but was able to get really lucky with that. So that kind of gets us through all of the kind of low to mid dollar games. Now we are going to get to the heavies. These were the heavy pickups for the first quarter that I got from GameStop's website and in their stores and just from eBay and such. We'll go through it all. First up, we have these 3 Pokemon games. So Pokemon Blue, Pokemon Yellow, and Pokemon Gold. All of these were purchased during GameStop's buy two get one. They ran that promotion at the very beginning of the year. And so I took advantage there and was able to snag all 3 of these games. Was really stoked that GameStop, not only was I excited that they sent them to me, but I was also happy that they were actually authentic. They weren't fake games. Next up, we have Blaster Master Boy. So this was part of a trade that I did recently at one of my local mom and pop shops. Traded away a bunch of games, and Blaster Master Boy was one of the games that I got back in return. A really neat Bomberman-like game for the for the Game Boy rather. 3 solid N64 games we have here, all from GameStop. These 2 were picked up online. Resident Evil 2 I actually picked up in store at a GameStop. Was glad to add all 3 of these N64 games to the collection. I don't do a lot of heavy N64 collecting, but when I do find them or if I see something that I want, I go ahead and grab them. My daughter's really getting into Mario Party, and we've been playing more and more retro games together, so was glad to add these 2 to the collection. Definitely stoked to add those. Got some more Super Nintendo goodness. Final Fantasy 3. This is actually a GameStop online pickup. Was pretty stoked to see the condition of this. You know, the label, not perfect, but in pretty good shape for a Final Fantasy game. So was glad to add this one to the collection. And then we have Silent Hill Book of Memories on the PS Vita. This was actually part of a trade where I traded some games away and picked up a couple of heavy hitting games. Silent Hill was one of them. I've got another heavy to show you that came as a part of that trade. Another recent pickup, the Def Jam Fight for New York Takeover. This was a part of that recent haul where I picked up a bunch of PlayStation 2, GameCube, and this PSP game here. This is basically Def Jam Fight for New York on the PSP. I actually have been playing this game for the past few days. I'm actually pretty good with Exhibit. I like Exhibit and Method Man. But this is actually a really cool game, a very rare game, and a heavy for sure. You see Def Jam Fight for New York on the GameCube and the PS2, but you don't really see it on the PSP. So this one was one that I definitely wanted to snag. Okay, Trauma Center Under the Knife. Didn't realize how expensive this game was until I picked it up. Didn't realize it was like a 50, 60, 70-ish dollar game until I got it. I actually had to use some GameStop credit because I returned an item that they said was beyond the return. I couldn't get basically my cash for it. I had to use store credit, so I used the store credit, picked up Trauma Center. It was like 27 bucks. Really good pickup there. Was glad to add this one. Got a stack of NES games to show you. So NES love. So really picked up some heavy hitting NES games during the first quarter, including Metal Storm, Felix the Cat, which is super rare, and Shadow of the Ninja. All of these were from GameStop.com. For those of you sleeping on GameStop.com, stop sleeping on GameStop.com. Sometimes when you see it, it's not too good to be true. And these 3 games are an example of just some really heavy hitting titles that I was able to find there. Really good stuff. Was glad to be able to snag those. Street Fighter Alpha 3. So I actually was able to get the Street Fighter Alpha 3 disc on, I can't remember where I got the disc, but I bought the disc loose for like 20 something dollars. And then somebody sold me the case for like $15. So for like $35, I got a complete in-box copy of Street Fighter Alpha 3. This was not from GameStop. This was just, I kind of Frankenstein this one together. But still, very clean copy of Street Fighter Alpha 3 on the Dreamcast. I was actually trying to find this on the PlayStation 1, but I'll take it on the Dreamcast because, you know, it's Dreamcast. It plays just as good, if not better, on the Dreamcast. Actually, no. When it comes to Street Fighter Alpha 3, PlayStation 1 might be the better console. Let me know down in the comments below. Best console to play Street Fighter Alpha 3 on. Let me know. Okay, this one is also not a GameStop pickup, surprisingly enough. This was a part of that trade at my local retro game store. Traded in a bunch of games and got this brand new sealed copy of Pandemonium 2. This is not a reseal, because I know sometimes these games, they get resealed and stuff. No, this still has the original hang tag and the actual seal on it. It does have a tear in the seal, like right here, but it's still pretty sick to see sealed PlayStation 2 games. And I sold my copy of Pandemonium 1 just because Pandemonium 2 was hard to find, complete in box. So how ironic, I was able to get a complete copy. Okay, next up, we have on PlayStation 3, Spider-Man Edge of Time. This was another GameStop.com pickup. Ordered this one, just kind of took a flyer on it. I honestly didn't think it would come complete, but of course it showed up to the crib and it was complete in good condition. So really good to see that there. Another GameStop pickup, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 for the PS4. One of the few modern console pickups that I had during the first quarter of the year, outside of like the Switch pickups, of course. Some more GameCube action, so I'll show you these two together. So first up, we have Mario Kart Double Dash. This is actually, I put in a bid for a copy on eBay. The seller accepted, and I got this copy. I didn't want to, I had the single disc copy, but I really wanted to get this copy that includes the bonus disc. So this is actually in pretty good condition. Was glad to be able to have this. This was added to the collection. And then I traded for this one. This is not a GameStop pickup. This is actually a trade that I made at a retro game store. Brought them a bunch of stuff and pretty much used all the credit to pick up this copy of Skies of Arcadia Legends, and this is actually in great shape. This isn't the original case. The original case was like jacked up, but that's why you keep those spare cases for the times where you pick up games like this. And what's funny is that I was able to bargain like an additional 5 to 10% off, because even though the cover art wasn't damaged, there was a huge hole in the plastic. So once I saw it, I was like, I know I can replace the case, but they gave me a discount because of that hole. So this is why spare cases really come in handy. These were 2 GameCube games I was glad to add. And we're down to the final 4. So I'll do these last 4 games one by one. Let's start with the first one. The first one is a recent one. You're probably anticipating it. And yes, that is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. This was one of the games that I picked up in the massive GameCube, PlayStation 2, and PSP haul that I was able to knock out the other day at GameStop. I caught them just in the nick of time. They had just taken in a bunch of retro, and these games didn't even make it out the box. Like, they didn't even get to hit the shelf. Like, as soon as I walked in, the employee saw me. They were like, oh, this is your lucky day. And it sure was. This copy was immaculate. I mean, super clean. You could look at that. You could go ice skating on that right there. And then, of course, it had everything in there, the manual, all that jazz. Super sick. Was glad to be able to add this one. Was glad that I found it. And then next up, we have Silent Hill 3. Now, this was actually a game that I traded for. I traded away a bunch of like just common games to a local reseller. Like I said, resellers are not really trying to keep these types of games in their inventory. They really want the regular stuff. They want the Super Mario All-Stars for Super Nintendo. They want the common stuff because that stuff sells for them. So I traded a bunch of common stuff away. Picked up this copy of Silent Hill 3. It's actually in really good condition, but again, that's because I had to do a case swap. The case that this originally came in was completely damaged. Luckily, I had a case, a PlayStation 2 case that had the dual discs, because Silent Hill 3 does come with a soundtrack as well as the actual game with it as well. So luckily, I had a case that I was able to make the swap and restore this back to a 9 out of 10 condition, because there was no damage to the cover art or anything like that. So this is another really solid pickup. Didn't have to pay for this one. This was all trade, so was glad on that. Last 2. I'm sure you guys know what these last 2 are. We'll start with the first one. This was one that I recently traded for over the past weekend, and that is Lunar, the Silver Star. This is the variant of Lunar that doesn't come with a reflective foil or the embossed printing on the actual manual or any of the cover art. So you just have like the standard Sega CD art there. But this was complete. It is in good condition, really good condition. This is, I'd give this one an 8 out of 10. But it plays, music and the sound is fantastic. Was really stoked to add this one to my Sega CD collection. Was glad to have this one. And this was done via trade. So this was not a GameStop pickup. I was actually able to negotiate a solid trade with a local reseller, and we came to a deal, and this was added to the collection. Was glad for this one. And then last but not least, you all know what this one is, and that is the heaviest of them all, Popful Mail. This $550 game came by way of trade. Again, sometimes it pays to build relationships with your local resellers, man. That sometimes they get the stuff that you're just not gonna find at a mom and pop shop. And if you have stuff that you're willing to trade, a lot of times they'll do pretty fair deals with you. So this was picked up by way of trade. This is another Working Designs game, pretty much like Lunar, but as you can see, this one actually does have that embossed foil lettering on it there, Popful Mail, that classic Working Designs artwork there, as you could see on the manual. But this one was in really good shape. I actually spent like a whole Saturday morning playing through this game. Voice acting is great, the sound is great, the platforming is really good. This is just a really good game, man. It's a really good action adventure RPG game. Really, it's just a really fun game. I am having a good time with this one. When I beat it, I will let you all know. But yeah, that pretty much does it for the first quarter of the year. I don't know if I'm gonna find anything else. I don't really know if there's much more than I can add to make this quarter as good as it was. Like I said, it wasn't my absolute best quarter. I've had much better quarters in the past. If you go back to, if you want to go back through the archives of my videos, you'll see I've had, first quarters where I'm getting like complete in box Super Nintendo games and stuff like that. But nevertheless, this was a really solid first quarter of the year, and just glad for everything that I was able to add. So let me know down in the comments if any of these games stood out to you. What's your favorite game? What have you picked up? What are some standout titles that you've picked up for the first quarter of the year? And I will catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.